All right, it's 5 past. We'll go ahead and get started then. So for those of you who've just joined, my name is Kimberly Bates. I'm the Content and Event Manager here at ROEST. You'll notice that you will not be able to use your camera or your microphone during this session. So if you do have any questions, if you do have any technical difficulties, please pop them in the chat. And we will go through this demonstration with my colleague here, Tom Hopkinson, who's the Customer Success Manager here at ROEST. And then that will be followed by a Q&A with Sverre Simonsen, who is our Chief Technology Officer and our co-founder. If throughout this presentation you have a question, do pop it in the chat. I will be moderating the chat. I'll pop in any answers that I can give you, but then I'll be collecting them for the Q&A session. So I'm going to bring Tom to the forefront and pass it over. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. And it's nice to see so many people, especially people that know the roster, but also a few people for whom this is completely new. So that's really great. Yeah, I'm really excited to be finally actually showing you guys the P3000. And as probably a lot of you know, this project has been a long time coming. But today I hope to show you why this little machine is 100% worth the wait. Because while the P3000 is pretty small, it is really, really powerful. We can roast more than 20 kilos an hour of green coffee. That means it can keep up with machines that are supposedly twice the size. And for example, if you're roasting just 5 hours a day, you could easily be doing half a ton a week on just this one machine. It also has, quite frankly, over-the-top data collection capabilities. So we have 18 sensors crammed in here. Now that might sound like overkill, but I'm going to come back later on and explain why we've gone down that route. And then finally, thanks to those sensors, it can roast automatically, of course, but with incredible consistency and precision. And so that is why we like to call this machine the ultimate overachiever. So we're going to start by taking a look at the machine. But before I start, I just want to point out one thing. This machine that I have right next to me is a pre-production model. So that means that some of the details that you see today are subject to change, to minor changes for the production models. And also not every feature installed on this specific machine is 100% complete yet. So just bear that in mind as we give the presentation. Okay. So like all of our machines, we build the P3000 right here in Oslo, in Norway. And you can see that influence in things like the choice of materials, the quality of the finish, and also in the design. And we've deliberately chosen a very simple, minimal design so that this roaster can fit in anywhere, whether you're planning to put it into your industrial roasting space, or perhaps if you're thinking about setting up a micro roastery in the back of your cafe, the machine will fit right in. And it's very compact as well. So as you can see, we've got it on a tabletop, you can have it on a trolley, and it's just over 40 centimeters wide, 90 centimeters deep, although you need a little bit of extra room at the back for your ventilation connections. And then in terms of height, less than 80 centimeters high, and that's including the hopper. So pretty compact. But while it's small, it has a capacity of up to 3 kilograms. And when we say 3 kilograms, we really mean it. With a full batch, I can reach first crack in less than 6 minutes. So that's pretty fast. And we're currently trialing even more powerful heating elements that would allow us to roast even faster. So that's why half a ton a week is perfectly achievable. At the other end of the scale, you can go down to 1 kilogram of green coffee and still get good bean temperature data. I'm pretty sure you could roast less if you don't mind sacrificing the bean temperature data, but that's not something we've really tested ourselves yet. Okay. And then in terms of power, it's connected to a 16 amp 3-phase connection. So that's a pretty standard commercial power supply. In fact, if you have a commercial premises in Europe, there's a good chance you already have a socket that you can just plug into, nice and easy. And it draws a maximum of 9 kilowatts in this configuration. At the back, there is a built-in cyclone, a chaff collector. So that separates the chaff and the dust from the exhaust. That collects at the bottom of the machine, and then there's a chaff screw that lightly compacts the chaff and pushes it out into your chaff bit. As you can see, there are 2 separate exhausts. So one from the cyclone, that is the drum exhaust, and a separate one from the cooling tray. So those 2 are completely independent, but you can combine them into one stack if you need to. And then finally on the front, we have the touch screen here. So this displays all the information about the roast during the roast, but it also is where you choose the parameters of your roast. So you can tell the machine what coffee you're going to roast, and it will deduct that from your inventory automatically. You can choose your profile, and then you can tell the machine how you want the roast to end. So it can end the batch automatically based on a bean temperature, based on a development time, or based on a development time ratio if you prefer, or you can leave that. But I have all of that set up already. I've chosen to end the batch at 204 degrees, and I have 3 kilograms of green coffee already loaded in the hopper. So I'm ready to start roasting. Before I do, I just want to connect us to live view. So give me 1 second. And okay. So now this here, what I'm showing you is our live view. This is from our web portal. So during the roast, the machine will be recording the data from all of those sensors, and you can see them in real time on our web portal here. And this is a browser-based app. So you can use it on any device with a web browser, whether that's a phone or a laptop or a tablet or anything like that. It also means that you can be looking at this from anywhere in the world. So if you want to keep an eye on what your team is doing while you're off traveling, you can do that as well. But for now, we're ready to roast. So I'm just going to start the roast. And to do that, I'll just tap start roast on the machine. Again, and it will load the batch for me. So right now, the charge door is opening. Beans are dropping into the drum. Once the beans are loaded, the charge door will close, the roast will start, and you'll start seeing data on the live view on the screen here. And at this point, I can relax. I don't have to do anything else. The machine is going to take care of the rest of the roast for me. It will follow the profile perfectly. It'll mark the stages of the roast, and it will end the batch based on the settings that I chose. Like I said before, 204 degrees, it'll just drop the batch into the cooling tray. So I don't have to have any more interaction with the machine at all. And this frees up my time to focus on other things while the roasting is taking place, whether that's a second roaster or cupping or talking to your customers. You have that time free. But if you want to, at any point, you can also take over and roast fully manually. So in manual mode, you can control the power, you can control the airflow, you can control the drum speed, just like you do on a conventional roaster. So to take control, I'm going to grab the power settings, make a change. Now I'm roasting in manual. And if you look on the graph, you can see how fast. No, you can't. Sorry. Okay, now it's updating. So this is the live view. I forgot to switch to it. My apologies. So you can see that it's now displaying the live temperatures from the roaster. And you can see when I made the change, the inlet temperature started dropping right away. So it's very, very fast to respond to changes that you make. And this is partly because it has high airflow, it has powerful fans, and it has a powerful heating element. So the machine can respond very quickly. But it's also because we use very fast, sensitive temperature probes. So the temperature reading you get is very accurate and very up to date. So when you make a change, you see the effects of that change right away. And that means in manual, this is a really responsive roaster. It's really nice to roast on. And at any point, you can go back to automatic mode. I'm just going to press and hold on the power. Now we are back in auto. So you really have the best of both worlds, and you can switch between the two. On the one hand, you have a automatic machine that can roast with almost no user input whatsoever, follow the profile perfectly, roast consistently. All you have to do is collect the roasted coffee. It'll do all that work for you. But on the other hand, we have a super precise, responsive, and accurate, consistent manual roaster. So that gives you incredible flexibility if you're roasting a lot of different kinds of coffees, or maybe for your competition lots where you want to have really tight control over the roasting, then this machine gives you that as well. So you really have the best. Okay, now while we're in the live view, we're going to leave the roaster running, and I want to show you some of the other things that the web portal can do. So KB, you can unpin the main camera, and I'm going to walk through the web portal now. So like I said, we're here in live view. And everything that you see here is recorded into your logs. So if I go into the logs here, we have a list of every batch that this machine has ever done. So if you can go back, you can look at your roast curves, you can compare them side by side, you can analyze your roasting. And then up here we have the profiles. So this is where you set and change the profiles that the machine is using. This is the profile we're using today. And I just want to show you how easy it is to change and edit those. So I can just click and drag, set the curve to where I want it to be. And the profile can be set to control the power, to control the temperatures. You can also control the drum speed and the fan speed in your profile automatically. Over here on the left, you can choose how to preheat the roaster. And then down at the bottom, you can choose how the roast should end if you want it to end automatically. So it's a very powerful profiling tool. But also we have a profile library. So if you want to take inspiration from the way that other users are roasting, or if you want to use a standardized profile, or if you want to share your profile with other people, you have those options and you can share them publicly if you want to in the library here. Then we have the inventory management. So here is a list of all the green copies we have. You can store the information about your copies, and it also keeps track of how much of each of those you have left. And finally, we have the cupping. For the cupping module, there's a really nice phone interface, very simplified phone interface for cupping. So you can set up a session. Your team can scan a QR code to join and then enter their scores on their phones while they cup. So you can use this for your QC to keep track of the quality of your green or the quality of your roasting. And what all of this means is that you have a fully featured suite here for running a roastery. If you're using this, the P3000, for your main production, you don't need to spend extra time and money setting up a third-party data logging software. Everything you need for a small roastery is right here. I'm going to go back to live view now to the end of the roast. And we can stick the main camera back on, KB. And I want to just come back briefly to something I mentioned earlier, which is about the number of sensors. So like I said, we have 18 sensors, but if you're looking on the live view, you can see there's only 5 lines showing here. So I've chosen to put up the bean temperature, the rate of rise, the inlet temperature, the air temperature, and the drum temperature to keep it simple. But in the background, there is a lot more data than that being collected, and you can choose how much of that you want to show on your live view if you want to. I want to explain why. Why do we have so many sensors? And I think the best way to explain is to give you one example. So for the bean temperature, you see one reading on the graph here. That is actually an average taken from 4 different sensors inside the bean pile. Because it's an average, it's much more stable and it's much more accurate. But also, those probes are in different positions. We have 2 on the left and 2 on the right. And that means we now have some extra information about the variations in temperature in the bean pile. So for example, you can see if one side is a little bit cooler than the other, that suggests maybe there's something wrong with the airflow or with the heating element on that side. The other thing it lets us do is calibrate those 4 probes. You probably know that thermocouples tend to drift over time. They lose accuracy. But we have 2 thermocouples and also 2 RTDs, which drift much less, or not at all. And we can use those to calibrate the probes against each other and make sure that you stay on calibration automatically without needing to replace the probes and things like that. So having 4 probes gives us a load of extra information. But you don't have to engage with that. On the graph, you can show just the one line if you want, or you can dig into that data and look at it all. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. All of that data is in the background. You can engage with it if you want to, or you can keep it simple if you prefer. Okay. The other thing that's unusual about this machine is that there's no trier. You might have noticed that already. And we decided not to put a trier in because we found that when users pull out the trier, even for a few seconds, cold air is coming into the drum, and that makes the roast way less consistent. And consistency is what we really, really wanted. So we did away with the trier, and instead we put in a camera module. So that camera is pointing at the bean pile, and it's taking snapshots of the beans, and you can see them on the screen right here. So that, first of all, gives you a great view of the coffee, and it's a really easy way to look at the development of your beans. But it also means that we can now start collecting visual data about your roasting as well as temperature data. So you can do things like look at the way the size or the color of the bean changes during the roast. And that's something we think we'll be able to do really interesting things with later on. And this display, as well as showing you the picture of the beans during roasting, it has all of the, it shows you the temperature, the temperature readings coming from the probes during roasting. And it also has a simplified graph of the roasting curve beneath. But this view is customizable. You'll be able to change what you see on here to suit your needs. So right now there's a lot of information, but if I want a slightly simpler view, I can just tap on the picture of the beans. It zooms in on that. That takes up more of the space, and I'm getting some of the temperature data in the background instead. Okay, so we've reached 204 degrees. The batch has just ended. And there's one part that we didn't quite get to, which is the first crack detection. So like our sample roaster, this machine is going to have first crack detection. And if you're familiar with it in the sample roaster, you already know this, but essentially it's based around audio. So there's a little microphone built into the machine, listening out the crack. When it hears them, it'll mark every single crack on the graph in live view. So then you can see not only the moment first crack happened, which the machine will mark automatically, you can also see how many cracks there are on the graph. And that tells you how intense first crack is. And it gives you an idea, if you count the cracks, it gives you an idea of how far through first crack you've come. So that's a really useful bit of extra information about the roasting. Unfortunately, on this machine, we don't have the first crack card installed because we've taken out to do some work on this particular one. But this is a feature that is probably familiar to most of you because you already know it from the L100 Plus. So that is what we use to mark first crack and choose your development time. And then when the roast ends, you can set an automated between batch protocol as well. So this is a way of resetting the thermal energy in the machine at the end of a roast. So you can set it to cool down a bit. You can choose how long or what target temperature you want to cool it to. And this way you can ensure that every roast starts with the same amount of heat in the machine. So then you know that every roast will be exactly the same. When I'm talking about consistency, I just want to show you what I mean. So I'm going to switch to comparison view here of two different batches that we did. Same profile. And if you look at the beginning, you can see that our between batch protocol wasn't perfect. Like the heat in the drum at the beginning wasn't exactly the same, but it was close enough. So we could have made this even more consistent. But if you look at the bean temperature curves and the rate of rise curves, they are directly on top of each other. The consistency is pretty incredible already. And with your between batch protocol worked out, you can make this even more accurate. But when we're talking about consistency, this is another level beyond what most roasters take. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And while the coffee is cooling, I'm going to set the machine now to start cooling down. And while it cools, we can start to talk a bit about cleaning, maintenance, and support. So just like on our sample roaster, the machine is designed from the ground up to be easy to clean, to maintain, and to repair. Our design philosophy behind this is an open design. The idea is that every part should be easily accessible to the user. That makes it easier to clean, it makes it easier to maintain, and it also makes it easier to repair. So if anything does need repair, replacement, or upgrading, it's something that you can do yourself if you want to. I want to give you an example of what that looks like, and that's in the bean cooler here. So in a traditional machine, if you want to deep clean the bean cooler, you need to disassemble it, lift out the tray, which is a two-man job. And only then can you access underneath the machine. But here, if I want to deep clean the bean cooler, I can just pull it out on a hinge, and now I have access underneath to the underneath of the tray, to the motor, and to the air filters behind here. I can just get in there with a vacuum cleaner, clean it out. It's so much easier. And the same thing applies. Body of the roaster, the front panel here is on a hinge. You can open it up, and then you have access to the components inside the machine. You can open up the drum and get inside. Like, it's really, really easy to access. So the idea is if it does need any work, you can do it yourself. You don't have to wait for a technician to come out. You don't have to call and fly someone out from Norway. We'll support you from here. We'll guide you through the process, and you can take care of it and get up and running as quickly as possible. But of course, if you don't want to, you don't have to. We are building our network of partners right now around the world, and that's growing in different countries. We also will build up a network of technicians who know the machine and can do that work for you if you prefer to hire somebody to do it. But the idea is for most simple repairs, it's much faster and much cheaper just to do it yourself, and we've done our best to make that as easy as possible for you. Now, in terms of installation, I want to talk about that a little bit. So as I mentioned, it uses a standard power supply. So this machine is configured for 3-phase, 16 amps at 400 volts, and it draws 9 kilowatts power. And that is a very standard power supply in a lot of the world. But there will be other configurations available if you want. So depending on what your needs are, that's something that we can discuss, but there will be other versions available. And if you buy a different configuration, it will also be possible to change. So if you buy single phase and upgrade to get 3-phase in the future, that's an option. And that makes the installation a lot easier than a gas roaster. You don't need a gas engineer. You don't need to run a special line for your gas. So that's really nice. In terms of the ventilation, as I mentioned, there are 2 exhausts. You can combine it into a single stack. And then in terms of how you treat that exhaust, there are less emissions than a gas roaster because you're not burning gas. But there are, of course, still emissions from the roasting that need to be taken care of. And what you need to do with that really depends on the law in your area. So it's difficult for me to give general advice. If you're thinking about buying one of these roasters, you need to consult with your local authority and find out what you need to do in terms of how you handle the exhaust from the roaster. But what I will say is, some of you probably know this already, we are working on an afterburner, which will reduce the smoke and the odors from the machine. This is going to be a fully electric catalytic unit. It will be super efficient. It's designed around recirculation, so that recaptures the waste heat from the air, makes it very, very efficient, and uses way less power than a conventional afterburner. Now, this is still in the prototype stage, so I can't really give you more details than that, but we're already testing it. It's already working really well. So we will give you more information about that as it gets closer to production. In terms of other feature plans, we also have a bean loader in prototype stage. So the idea is this, is you load it up with green coffee, and then it's a machine that will weigh out the amount of coffee you need, load it into the hopper, and then the roast can start automatically. So that just takes another step out of the roasting process. You can roast batch after batch after batch with minimal user input, and all you have to do is come and collect the roasted coffee. As well as the hardware, we've got some pretty ambitious plans for software as well. So we are going to be looking at things like AI-assisted roasting tools. And those kind of tools will be available as part of a subscription service. So you might have heard this mentioned. But I want to reassure you guys, everything that you've seen so far today, the basic features of roasting and profiling, those are all included. That is part of the standard package. So the subscription features, the AI-assisted roasting, all of the advanced things that we have planned in terms of software, there will be a subscription for those, and we'll release more information about that once those features are developed. But it is always going to be optional. You're not locked into having that subscription to get really great use out of it. Okay. So now I just want to talk a little bit about pricing and availability. So up until now, we've been operating on a pre-order model. So we had a waiting list. We've been taking deposits to get on the waiting list for the first production machines. All of those have sold, but today we are opening the very last batch of pre-orders. We're opening 15 more slots on our waiting list to you guys in the chat right now today. So this is exclusive to this group for the next 24 hours, 15 more slots, and then after that, we're going to open up to the public. So if you get on the waiting list, price of the machine is 26,900 euros. The final production version that this is for, if you don't get on the waiting, if you don't go with pre-order, final production price will be higher than that, but there will also be different tiers available with different levels of functionality. So if you are thinking about getting on the waiting list, this is really the last chance. And in terms of when those machines are coming out, so the first pilot customers are already roasting. So the first machines are already out in the real world, which is great. It's been really nice to see what those guys are doing with their machines. We're building the last few of those now. I think there's 7 more pilot machines going out that we're building. When those machines are finished, then we are getting into the full production. The first machines from that production run will be going out to customers in Europe that have already reserved the machines. So those are the guys who are going to be getting the machines first. If you are outside of Europe, then how long it takes to get the machine depends a little bit on the laws in your country. It depends on the certification and the testing that is required for you to buy the machine from it. Now, I can't really give details about every single country in this chat right now, but if you want to talk about your particular situation, best thing to do is to contact sales and ask them. So you can just email sales@roestcoffee.com, tell them about your situation, and we'll give you as much information as we can about plans for release in your country. And that is it as far as the demonstration goes. And I hope I've managed to show you the kind of potential that this machine can have for your business. It's ideal if you have small-scale production. For example, if you're planning to start a micro roastery, this is a really labor-efficient way of doing that at small scale. But as you've seen, it's powerful enough to be useful for much bigger roasteries as well. One machine can do half a ton a week. So with 2 of these, a ton a week is a decent-sized roastery. And we have some customers that are already planning to do this, buy 2, run them side by side, and use that as their main production use. And then for the bigger, more established roasteries, the precision and the control that you have makes it ideal for roasting your micro lots, your competition coffees, to the absolute best of their ability. So whatever size business you have or are thinking about setting up, there's a use case for this machine. I can't wait to see what all of you guys end up doing with it, how you roast, how you use it. That is it from me. So I'm going to pass you back to Kimberly, who's going to moderate the Q&A. Sverre is going to join me, and we'll answer the questions as best we can.
Hello, I'm here. I'm back. I'm here to help answer your questions. I will take what you've written in the chat and pose these questions to Tom and Sverre here. I did notice that there were some questions that were specific to different countries, and in the essence of time and being mindful of everyone here, we'll go with some of those questions a little bit more general, but we've taken note of all the questions that are here, and we'll put together like an FAQ in the coming week and send that out to people so that we, make sure we get all your your questions answered, other way around. All right, so let's see. How are we doing with Sverre joining us here?
I'm here.
Here we go. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Sverre. So we'll get started on our first question here. It's always a popular one for sample roasting to production roasting. So the question is it possible to transfer a profile from the sample roaster to the P3000?
So do you want to answer this one? Or?
Yeah, so we haven't made any algorithm to do that right now. What I know is that Scott Rao, he has been able to transfer the profiles or the learnings from his sample roaster to the production roaster that he has. So I'm pretty sure that we will be able to get a fairly good, you will not be able to get a one-to-one relationship here between the sample roaster and the bigger one, but you might get 80–90% on the way. So, and that is something that we will look more for, because right now we're focusing mainly on the hardware side of things, and then we will add on the software side as we have more time for that. So that's something that will hopefully be in place within next year.
That's great. Thank you.
To understand that the profiles will look different because the machines operate in different ways. So the translation is something that we will need to do in software to create some equivalencies. We think we can get pretty close, but it's never going to be a case of the exact same profile across the two. We will need to adjust profiles to fit.
I'm just going to take the coffee out of the bean cooler because it makes a little bit of noise, and
So does everybody notice Sverre's t-shirt there? It's one that we had at World of Coffee Copenhagen. It's a very cute design. We love it. We're all wearing ROEST t-shirts, if you've noticed. I know, Sasha, you noticed there in the chat. All right, so there is a couple of blog posts on our blog where Tom had chatted to some roasters on how they use the ROEST sample roaster to translate the data into a production roast, and that's not on our P3000. That is on on a Gießen, on a Loring. So there is ways of using the ROEST sample roaster's data to help you create a profile for production. All right, so next question. Will there be roasting profiles for 3 kilo roasts available to download or that are pre-installed when the machine is delivered?
Short answer, yes.
Short
we
answer,
haven't developed that kind of profiles yet, but that is something that we plan to do, just like we do for the sample roaster. So you will have a library to get you started, and we will plan to grow that over time.
yes, so if you haven't done production roasting before or don't really know where to start with the P3000, we will work to have those available to you, and that will be part of your kind of setting up guide as well. All right, next question. Can the P3000 work without an internet connection? Sverre, would you mind taking that?
Yeah, so right now the machine requires the internet to download new profiles. What we are planning on doing is creating a desktop version of basically what you have in a web browser. This is something we are developing both for P3000 but also for a upgraded PCB on the sample roaster. So here you would be able to have a USB connection with your computer, and then you can have sort of a local network type of thing where basically you have access to everything that you would have on a traditional setup with the Wi-Fi connected. But there is one difference here between the P3000 and the current version of the sample roaster, and that is that this one, it is basically a computer inside here. So you will have much more powerful tools in this machine, so you can store a lot more data in it, obviously. So basically, if you're happy with your profiles, the machine can roast offline and store all the data. Once you connect it to Wi-Fi again, it will upload everything to the cloud.
And in real time, you'll see the curve right there on the screen, which helps you as well.
So the answer is no, you do not need an internet connection to roast. You can roast offline, but in order to save your profiles and to save your batches, you will need to upload them when you reconnect to the Wi-Fi. Next,
I think this group is now the very first group to hear that we're planning the latest upgrade on the sample roaster. So you guys got a big scoop here. But yeah, we're pretty excited about that as well. That's not what we're talking about today, so I won't say any more. But yeah, we're always innovating, always developing, and trying to improve the whole time.
and this is why joining a live session has its benefits. You get scoops that we don't necessarily have out there just yet. Right, so next question, maintenance and cleaning for the P3000. So the sample roaster is built in such a way that you as the user are able to open up the machine and get in there yourselves, replace your parts, clean them. So Tom, could you just share with us how this may differ and give an example of what intervals we might be looking at for weekly and deep cleaning?
Sure. I mean, one of the ideas when I started designing this machine 4 or 5 years ago was basically to make, I wanted to make a machine that is super consistent, but I also wanted to make sure that I made a machine that has easy access for cleaning and maintenance. So that has been some of the main points that has been always the decision make. Like when you made a decision in design, it's come down to, will it increase the consistency and will it help make sure that the machine is easy to service and maintain. So for instance, the shaft, it gets extruded out the back of the machine. So instead of having the typical large bucket underneath the cyclone, the cyclone is built into the system. And then the shaft falls down into extruder and it gets extruded out the back. So you can connect a steel bucket at the back. Right now, we just have a plastic bag, but we will design some few other accessories where you can, for instance, have different sizes of buckets attached to the back. And that is important because it will make sure that you don't have to have so frequently maintaining or frequently changing the cleaning the bucket for the shaft. And some of the other features that is important in terms of maintenance is that the machine has an overpressurized system, which means that on a traditional roaster, you will have a cyclone, and on top of the cyclone, you have a fairly large fan, and that fan will require cleaning at some point. With this system, there is no fan above the cyclone, so the fan has been moved in front of the roasting chamber, basically, and have filters in front of them. So the fans themselves never needs cleaning. There's some small filters there, but those are just for particles. So that means that you have both one less big fan you need to clean, but at the same time, you have easy access to the cyclone. So all you need to do is remove the ventilation connection on top, and then there will be a special steel brush or nylon brush that you can insert, put in a power tool, and then you basically are cleaning the inside of the cyclone, and it will take you 5 minutes or less. So that's just part of what we are focused on when it comes to maintenance and easy access to the critical parts of the machine. So in order to just go quickly through the remaining parts that needs cleaning, like Tom showed, you can open this one up, and behind here you have 2 large filters for the shaft for a shaft that goes through the bean cooler. And you can even access the front door here. And behind here we have a access hatch to the ventilation system. There as well, there will be a special tool so you can insert. And then you're basically, by cleaning the ventilation system inside from that access point and the ventilation system or the cyclone from the top, you are cleaning all the most critical aspects of the machine in less than 10 minutes. Because the roasting chamber itself is fixed, so it's not moving. So the coffee beans are constantly agitating and cleaning the inside of the drum where it matters. But for those that really want to deep dive and clean the machine and basically put it back to the same way it was when it was new, we have made it possible to access the entire drum or roasting chamber. So it can split open, the shaft and everything comes out, and then you have basically just a steel part you need to clean in order to get the machine back to how it was when you bought it new.
So if you have a sample roaster, it's the same principle. It's just a bigger machine and a lot more probes and sensors in there. So you can do it yourself, which is what here at ROEST we encourage people to get into the machine, clean it themselves. It helps with keeping things up when it comes to your roasting time in your spaces. Okay, so we have some questions on the add-on features. So we're talking about the automatic feeder and the afterburner. So we'll get some questions here for the automatic feeder first. So there's a question here about dropping the beans automatically and then reloading the beans. So Sverre, could you talk us through how that automatic feeder will work?
So basically, the automatic feeder, it will be a standalone unit. It will be a fairly large unit. It will be floor standing. You can fill up with 100 kilos of coffee. At the bottom there will be some device that will automatically weigh the batch size that you want, and then it will vacuum lift it into the hopper. So on the machine, you will need to replace the hopper, but that's just attached with 2 bolts. So you need a hopper that's a tiny bit bigger that has attachment point both for the incoming coffee beans and for the basically the hose that goes to the vacuum that is kept underneath the feeding unit. So when you're operating this unit, you will just schedule your roast. So you will decide what batch size you want, what coffee. Obviously, the coffee has to be in the feeding unit, but also the profiles. And then you can schedule how many batches you want the machine to done. You can add the between batch protocol. One interesting thing about the between batch protocol is that we have designed the machine so that it doesn't accumulate heat over time. So basically, after like 2-3 roasts or a proper heat up, it doesn't increase in temperature throughout the day. And we also have 3 different sensors attached to the drum wall, so we can monitor this and make sure that this is actually true. So that means that when you have the automatic feeder loading attached, there you between batch protocol could be so simple that wait 5 seconds and then load the next batch. So basically, the feeding unit will vacuum lift the coffee into the hopper. The machine will know that the coffee has been filled up. It will automatically start based on your pre-ordered schedule with the batch size and the profiles and how many batches you want. As soon as the coffee is out, the machine will just run the between batch protocol and start the next batch. This part here is also fully automated, so you can just have a fairly large bucket in front there that will collect your coffee beans. We are, at the same time, we are monitoring all the different processes of this machine. So if there was something happened, maybe, I don't know what it would be, but if something happened, the monitoring system will automatically stop that batch from dropping into the main bucket if there were some issues. So let's say you roasted 100 kilos of coffee and something happened with the last batch, it would not go into the bucket and destroy your entire batch of roasting.
No roaster wants to sit there and try and pick out coffee beans from a good batch. So thank you very much with that for the automatic feeder. Could you talk a little bit about the afterburner, please?
Yeah, so basically the afterburner is designed in such a way that you connect it. So you can't see it obviously from your angle, but you can see 2 pipes. Yeah. So this is the exhaust from the roasting chamber. And at the back, you can see a larger hose, which is for the bean cooler. So we already separated those 2 out so that you can have only the exhaust air cleaned, because that's the only part you really need to clean. So the afterburner itself is a unit that consists of a heating element, a recirculating hot air fan, and then a catalytic unit, which is the important part. So basically, we will take the exhaust, we will try and keep the temperature as high as possible going into the catalytic unit in order to conserve energy. And then we will have a booster fan inside the catalytic unit that will increase the temperature to what you needed. So what's needed is basically also dependent on where you are in the process. So in the beginning of the roast, you might not need to have that high of a temperature because the coffee bean, actually in the first like few minutes, 5 minutes of the roast, depending on the profile, obviously, the coffee smells nice. It's like baked bread almost. At the end, it tastes a little bit more unpleasant. So to conserve energy, the catalytic unit will basically automatically adjust the temperature in that unit based on where you are in the roasting process. So it doesn't have to use more energy than necessary. It will also know if the machine is not roasting, and it will basically just lower the temperatures. So we are aiming to have a catalytic unit that can run on a 16 amp to 30 volt socket. There will be a little bit of smell still noticeable after that afterburner. So if you are in a residential area where you like absolutely no smell is acceptable, there will be a higher rated version where you can have a little bit more higher rated temperature heating elements, and you can basically just burn off everything. But for most cases, that's really not needed. There's no smoke coming out of the 230 volt 16 amp version that we currently are running, even with a large 3 kilo batch. So it's but it will be the same unit. It will just be a slight difference on the configuration and the heating elements. So you can basically buy one unit and then you can retrofit it with a more powerful heating elements as you need. And we're also talking about how thinking about how we can clean the unit. So the catalytic unit itself, the idea there is that we can run basically a cleaning cycle where the catalytic unit itself heats up to the temperature needed to get rid of all the buildup that could be on the catalytic units themselves.
Great, thank you. So we've got a few more minutes for this session. We did have a question where someone's asked that they plan to use multiple machines and multiple production roasters in the same space, and they want to know if they'll be able to manage the roasts in one software. So, for example, being able to use Cropster, for example.
Yep. So the integration with Cropster is something we've been actively working on. So if you are using Cropster already, we're in testing still with them. There's a few errors to work out. We're waiting for a bit of development work from them. But the plan is to be able to export all of your data to Cropster so that you can have it all in one place if you want to. So yeah, that's not a problem. If you're only using roasts, then of course you can manage all those machines from our software in one place. And if you use the sample roaster, you might have seen that already. You can have several machines attached to your account. You can switch between them at will.
Fantastic, thank you. There is a question here with the automatic feeder. Can you roast through the night, or is that a bad idea?
You need to have somebody there for safety reasons. That doesn't necessarily need to be your most skilled roaster. So if you can employ somebody to stand by the machine with enough training to look after any potentially hazardous problems, you can't legally leave it running by itself.
That has to do with certification. We are not certifying the machine to be a completely standalone unit. There has to be an operator.
Yeah. But if you want to run it all night and you don't want to do it yourself,
I mean, the machine doesn't care.
Yeah.
The machine can run continuously.
So if you wanted to roast all night, yes, we would just highly recommend that someone is standing there with the machine. Okay, so we have time for, let's say, one more question. Let me just find where that one is. Well, we did have a question about where will be the next place that people can experience the P3000 in person. So I'm going to take that question quickly. So we do have the trade shows in 2025. We're working on the ones that we're going to go to. So if you go to the website, there's in the resources section, there is an upcoming events list, and that's where you'll be able to find where you can find ROEST and our partners in person. So just keep an eye out on there. And if you're on our mailing lists, then we'll be sending you updates as well, where and when we are, and what you'll be able to see. So if you wanted to see the sample roaster in person or the P3000, we'll have that information available as we confirm those up. All right.
I'll just add one thing to that, Kimberly, which is that if anyone is within reach of Oslo, you are welcome to come right here. This space that we're in right now is being set up as a dedicated roasting room. So we're going to have people in here using the roaster, trying it out, but also we're going to be doing a lot more roasting in here. So this space is accessible to people. If you want to come and do a few batches with us, you're always welcome.
Yep.
Or if you want to do 500 batches, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to stand here and roast all night, we'd be delighted.
So that if you do want to try out the P3000 and you are within driving, flying, or you happen to find yourself in Oslo, pop the sales team an email, which is sales@roestcoffee.com. I'll pop the email address in the chat again. So we'll wrap up this session today. I know we didn't get to every question that's in the chat, but we have taken note of them, and we'll take it away as a team, and we'll get an FAQ sheet together and email that out to everybody. This session has been recorded, so if you had any technical issues or if you missed anything because your dog was barking, whichever, I will be sending out an email with the link to the recording later on today. But also we are, as Tom mentioned, we are opening the third and final batch for deposits for the pre-production run, of the P3000. So there are only 15 slots available, and you can secure your roaster via the link, which I'm just popping into the chat now. So if you found this demo very helpful and you've made your decision that you want to get in the production queue for this machine, then use the link there. This link is exclusive to this group for 24 hours, and then we'll be opening it up to the rest of the group. So thank you very much for joining us for this session today. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sverre, for the demonstration and for answering the questions here. If you have any, if you think of any other questions, or if you want an update on your deposits or production or anything specific to your country, please send an email to the sales team. Again, their email address is there in the chat, sales@roestcoffee.com. All right, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the internet. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Bye.